Hey everybody, Derek here to bring another video for Z Nation Season 3. And this video will be my review of the latest episode of Z Nation, which was called Election Day. If you are not caught up with Z Nation and you do not want to be spoiled in any way, then I suggest you exit the video now and come back later, because otherwise you will be spoiled. Okay, so overall, I thought the episode was pretty good. Adding Skeezy and Sketchy back into the episode, back into the plot, I thought was a very good idea. They are two recurring characters that really bring a lot of humor, a lot of comedy. And I thought the subplot of the episode was also very interesting, talking about the different cons and the illness, things like that. I thought it was very good. I thought they really threw a great episode together, and I was very, very happy with it. So, very good job to Z Nation. I thought it was great. So the episode begins with Doc and Addie stuck on the side of the road. Their vehicle is broken down, and all of a sudden this limousine pulls up, and you see these presidential emblems. You hear the anthem for the president, and you see motorcycles that are actually riding along with it in a sense to guard it. And it turns out that Skeezy is driving the limo, and you have Sketchy in the back seat. He leans his head out the window, says, "Hey Doc, hey Addie, good to see you again," invites them in for a drink. And we come to learn about Sketchy and Skeezy's new con. Of course, we know from previous episodes they are some of the biggest con artists that Z Nation has to offer. And basically, they are actually driving in what they claim to be Bill Clinton's limousine. And they're basically going around the country, stopping at different places, presenting themselves as the president. Well, Sketchy is the president, and, Skeezy's just part of his, plan. And basically just taking supplies that way. And it's pretty, dark of a con. A lot of the times when we've seen Skeezy and Sketchy in the past, a lot of their dealings, a lot of things, yeah, they were bad. They shouldn't have been doing those things. But really, you saw more of a comedy element to it. It was kind of funny to see them work their, talents to see what they could do. But this episode, it really took a little bit of a different turn. I found I really wasn't laughing as much, so much as I was actually shocked with how much of an impact they were really having. It kind of showed the bad side of their activities, in a sense, the harm they were causing rather than the comedy. So I thought that was a little different in this particular episode. So, of course, Skeezy and Sketchy are on their way to Wall Drug, South Dakota, and they, of course, know that there's people there. It's one of the last settlements, I guess, in the state of South Dakota. So they get there, and they basically have their whole campaign trail set out before them. There are these two girls, I think their names were Gina and Tina. They dress like political, patriotic cheerleaders. They're full of peppy energy. You wouldn't think that they would actually be in a zombie apocalypse, but, they were basically there to help out, and the town residents come out of hiding. They come out to see what's going on, and, Sketchy basically presents his case. He has this list where he claims to be the 194th, I think, person that was in line to the succession of president, and he basically claims everybody else is dead, and he's the only one left. So he basically preaches to the group about things that he's going to do. It really turns into, in a sense, almost parodying some of the events that have been happening in our recent election for president between Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton. And I think that, they drew a lot of comedy from the Donald Trump element, because they kept on taking the Make America Great Again and putting different spins on it with the zombies and the zombie apocalypse and things like that. And basically, you have this mayor in Wall Drug who is, listening to what he has to say, and he's a little bit, she's a little bit skeptic about just what Sketchy's about. But some other members of the town are really excited about this, and, they actually fall for it. So you have people on different sides, kind of like how a presidential election is. You have voters who may be more supportive of one candidate and are more skeptical of the other. You kind of saw that playing out. And you also saw basically some actual real world problems that were happening in Wall Drug, because they were running low on supplies, And at the same time, you also have an incident with people getting sick. And while Skeezy and Sketchy are, putting on their campaign and swindling people out of their goods, Doc and Addie come to find out that there are people that are getting sick. Basically, their eyes are turning yellow and they're, growing weak. They would pass out. And of course, they would die. Their heart would stop and they would come back as a zombie, which is what happens when somebody dies in the zombie apocalypse. So Doc spends a lot of the episode actually trying to figure out what's going on there because people are sick. There were a couple of people that did die in this episode during it, because of the illness. And basically, some of the townspeople were trying to look to Sketchy for a solution, and Sketchy really didn't have one. He was more just, throwing on his whole "Make America Great Again," make the zombie apocalypse go away, get rid of those zombies, and then of course proposing the most ridiculous plan of building a wall, another of Trump's references, basically making a zombie wall to shield the rest of the country from zombies, so just throwing out all these ridiculous points. And like I said, you really do see more harm that they're doing by, instead of just, taking a situation and making fun of it like Z Nation normally does. I think they really showed just how much Skeezy and Sketchy actually do hurt things. And I think that it really took a different spin in this episode in particular. Now, as the episode goes on, though, we get to the middle of it, and this other guy shows up, and, he pretty much almost looks like Trump. He's got, the kind of the look, he has the hair going on, and he just waltzes in, and he says his name is John J. Lannister, and he is actually the president of the United States. And what it turns out is Sketchy and Skeezy actually stole his con. So John J. Lannister, another con artist, has pretty much been going around the country doing this, and then Skeezy and Sketchy caught up with him, and they were like, hey, this is a good idea. You're a great con artist. This is absolutely genius. And then they steal his idea. They take his limo. They take his women, because I guess Gina and Tina were his cheerleaders, so they took them and basically left John Lannister to die, and they thought he had died, but turns out, hey, in Z Nation, you can pretty much survive a lot, and he came back. And you basically had the two of them, Sketchy and John Lannister, fighting over, who was the rightful president. So it takes a spin there where the two of them are basically having a debate, poking holes in their, reform ideas for the zombie apocalypse and just yelling at each other back and forth, kind of, again, labeling the actual election that's going on. And while this is going on, you have Doc, who's trying to figure out what's going on with the water. So he does some investigating, and it turns out there's one other settlement that's still around in South Dakota called Rosebud, and that's where Waldrug gets a lot of its supplies and its water. So Doc goes down to like one of the water wells and finds out that there's a zombie head inside of it. And basically, I guess the zombie, virus was trickling out into it. I guess maybe it might have been mixing with something else. The water might have done something to it, but basically, that's what was making people sick, and that's what was making their eyes turn yellow and dying. And of course, again, people in the town are getting this, and during the debate, the mayor passes out. Her eye turns yellow, and she passes out, and Doc has to think quick. He has to figure out what to do because nobody else is doing anything. You have Sketchy and Lannister doing their speech. You have the town people listening, not really caring about what's going on around them. So Doc has to jump into action, and Doc is able to come up with a solution. He goes and he gets the charcoal in the town, and he knows from, I guess, some show, I think Naked and Afraid, he said that charcoal, I guess, acts as a binder. It prevents bacteria, viruses, I guess, from maybe attaching to cells in your body, something like that. And he gives it to the mayor to eat, and she does, and it works. It actually works, and it takes the yellow out of her eye, and it makes her feel better. Well, Doc wants to go and present this to the town, basically tells Sketchy and Lannister that there is a cure, there is something that they can do, and, both men just basically dismiss his claims, basically saying he's full of it. And it was very sad to see that, to see Sketchy, rather than help out his friend Doc and actually, trust in him, that he kind of took the political stance of, sorry, man, it's just, it's not scientific, enough for us. And at this point, you think that everything's going to get worse, and it does, but in a different way. Another thing that was going on through the episode was that, number one, zombies were actually making their way towards Wall Drug. The other thing that was going on was there were these men in an RV that were basically driving towards Wall Drug the entire episode. And they had guns, and they had, basically this attitude of, we're going to go there and we're going to get them. And you don't know what's going on. And they finally get there, and it turns out that, I guess, they're part of this political party or something called the Z Party. And my understanding is that Lannister and Sketchy conned them out of their supplies. So basically, the Z Party was conned out of their supplies, and now they're there to get revenge. They're there to confront Sketchy and Skeezy and Lannister about what they did and what's going on. And, Sketchy kind of taunts them, and there's a firefight. Basically, there's guns blazing everywhere. People are ducking for cover, fighting them, fighting the zombies. And it's during this time that Doc and Addie realize there's really not much more they can do. Doc has found the cure for what's going on. They really can't get through to Sketchy and Skeezy to stop them from doing their con. And hopefully they realize that the townspeople are coming to their senses, and they decide to leave. So they end up running outside and taking the limo from Skeezy and Sketchy, and they drive away, and you're left with Skeezy and Sketchy laying out in the mud fighting with Lannister as the end of the episode. So again, you leave Sketchy and Skeezy off at a point that we usually find them is just in this crazy mess, but somehow they probably will find their way out and work their way back towards the group again. At some point in the future. But again, Doc and Addie just continue on in their journey. They realize that the real way that they can fix this world is to really go there, find Lucy in Springfield, and, keep watch over her, see if they can get the vaccine and really cure this world, And you see that different motivation there from them. And it really does focus a lot on that, this episode. Really this idea of what really is going to save the world. And I think that you saw that in this episode in particular. And one more note, they were about ready to vote for president in Wall Drug between Lannister and Sketchy before the attack. And it turns out the votes were cast, but they were never read before the Z Party showed up. Well, neither of those guys won. Doc won the election. So, hey, I guess Doc became the president of the United States, doesn't even know it. And I think it would be pretty funny if he did actually find out that the election went towards him. But, that was basically the funny part of the episode at the end there was, the citizens of Wall Drug end up leaving the town because there's just nothing left. The water's ruined. They have the charcoal so they can cure themselves, but they're basically just going to head out and, go to parts unknown like many of the other one-time characters on the show. But again, I thought it was a very good episode. I thought it definitely brought out a different side of Skeezy and Sketchy, and I'll be interested to see what they are going to be up to again the next time we see them. I'm assuming they're going to make it out of Wall Drug fine, just maybe a little dirty from the mud, and, I think the next time we see them, maybe they'll be doing something different, but maybe you would like to think that they would learn a lesson from this episode. It's hard to say. I think that the conning and the conniving that they do is part of their characters. It's something that makes them great. But, it did bother me a little bit, that they were willing to go to such extremes. And it did bring out a different side of them. It really did. This idea of how their cons really do hurt people. We don't see that much in the past seasons. This one really brought that out. So I will be interested to see what they do with their characters the next time we see them. I'll be interested to see Doc and Addie make it to Springfield and see what Lucy's up to. And of course, next week it looks like we're going to be back with our main group with Warren and the Scorpion, and we're going to find out what happened with 10K and Murphy. So lots of things coming up on Z Nation, and I'm looking forward to it. So with that, I'm going to bring this video to a close. I want to thank all of you for watching. If you have any questions or comments, don't be afraid to leave them. Feel free to subscribe. I do have more videos coming. And if you have any suggestions for future videos that you would like to see, don't be afraid to suggest them. Have a very wonderful evening, and thank you all very much for watching.